Greetings, epic Fortnite gamers. It is I, obviously Jesus, here taking a break from all the depressing shit and bringing you the third installment of Cooking with Christ, wherein I teach you about making food, specifically vegan food. And today is Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, even though it's kind of a racist holiday. Although, I mean, I guess in principle, giving thanks as a cause for a holiday isn't that bad. But anyway, aside from the weird racist undertones and the terrible, horrible shit that goes on in the meat and dairy industries, I'm going to be making some Thanksgiving main course for you guys today, and it's a hearty lentil and mushroom shepherd's pie. This is a book by Nava Atlas, which is kind of a weird name. But okay, this is called the Vegan Holiday Kitchen. I'm going to make a change or two as we go here, but we're basically going to be following this recipe more or less. And essentially, I'm going to take you guys through the making of this lentil and mushroom shepherd's pie. I'm on a clock because, as I said, it is Thanksgiving today, and I have a vegan potluck to go to. So anyway, I don't know if this will be up in time for you to use it on your own Thanksgiving, but you can certainly use it for dinner on any particular given night. And you can definitely use it when Christmas rolls around, because I don't know if I'm going to be doing another Cooking with Christ in this year. I think if I decide to make my own tofu turkey again this year, like I did a couple years ago, I think I will do a Cooking with Christ on that. But I'm not entirely sure I'm going to do that. And anyway, this is probably a whole hell of a lot easier because I made my own tofu turkey one time, and it was way more trouble than it was worth. So anyway, as I do in most of the Cooking with Christ videos, we're going to go over the go over the fucking ingredients that we'll be using throughout the video. And then, of course, everything will be in the description. Everything that you need will be in the description of the video that you could possibly need. I have no idea if I'm in frame right now, so this is why I'm kind of leaning in this kind of awkward way, because again, I'm on a clock, so to speak. But anyway, without much further ado, we'll go through the ingredients and then we'll get cooking. I'll skip through most of the prep, so you're not just spending 15 minutes watching me chop potatoes and stuff. But anyway, speaking of potatoes, we'll start there. These are Yukon Gold potatoes. They should be in focus. I have a pretty closed aperture. I never know if an aperture is closed or open, but I'm on 7.1, f over 7.1, whatever the hell that means. So these are Yukon Gold potatoes. The common precedent, I guess, says that russet potatoes are generally used for mashing, or better for mashing, but I don't like russets. I feel like they're extremely dirty, or either that or it's like the skin coming off. But yeah, these are cleaner and they're perfectly good for mashing. Yukon Gold potatoes. I got I have 10 medium size there. I got some rice milk. Let's go over what's on the counter. A couple things are still in the refrigerator. We got some rice milk that we're going to be using with Earth Balance in the fridge to make mashed potatoes, essentially the top shepherd's pie. For those of you who have never had shepherd's pie, or if it's not like a thing in your country, or they call it something else, I think it's sometimes called cottage pie as well. When I was growing up, shepherd's pie was on the bottom a layer of ground beef, in the middle a layer of corn, and on the top a layer of mashed potatoes that would get nice and crispy and golden brown on the top when you would bake it in the oven. So I'm going to share that little memory of you in vegan form, or with you in vegan form, and show you just generally how easy it is to cook, and more importantly, cook vegan, because I am thankful this holiday for the slow and steady decline of the meat and dairy industry. But anyway, moving on past the vegan shit, we got the rice milk that we're going to use with the vegan butter, to the Earth Balance, to make mashed potatoes. And then for the main filling, which is going to replace the ground beef, as you can tell, we're going to be using lentils and mushrooms. The mushrooms are still in the fridge, but we got 2 cans of lentils right here. We got 2 medium-sized Vidalia onions. They come from Georgia. They are called alternatively sweet onions. They're really good. It's got a head of garlic here. Going to probably use 3 cloves off of that. And then for seasonings, we're going lighter than I usually go. But yeah, typical salt and pepper, thyme, and then tamari, which is just soy sauce with less sodium and a better taste, if you ask me. And then finally, we have Trader Joe's 21 Seasoning Salute. You can pick this up anywhere, well, at any Trader Joe's, and they're all over the country. So you can pick this up pretty much anywhere that has a Trader Joe's. And it's just a bunch of different spices. I think thyme is actually in here, but I'll read it off to you. It's like onion powder, pepper, celery seed, cayenne, parsley, all sorts of good stuff in there like that. It's just sort of like Italian herbs and spices, but not specifically Italian. It's sort of like somewhere between Italian seasoning and herbs de Provence, which I have over there as well, but we're not going to use. So yeah, pretty light on the seasonings, not very demanding. And like I said, for the main body that we're going to use to replace the ground beef, in shepherd's pie, we're going to have lentils and a bunch of mushrooms as well. I think I'm going to add more mushrooms than they tell me because I have to fill a pretty large pan that is out of frame right now. As for pans, you only need 2 pans on the stovetop or your range, whatever you want to call it. I got a pretty deep skillet with a hard bottom, hard bottom. And then I got, I think this is like a 4.5. Yeah, this is a 4.5 quart thing that we're going to use to do the potatoes. Potatoes are pretty easy, and pretty much once I've gone over all this stuff, the next step is simply just to peel them. Oh yeah, over here we got cornstarch. It's a thickener. It's going to make it nice and thick and juicy, like your mom's booty, as they say in Fortnite. And finally, panko crumbs. Not something that I traditionally use. You can absolutely make this recipe without any kind of breadcrumb, but what they suggest in here is to put a layer of breadcrumbs on the bottom of the pan as well, or yeah, of the baking pan as well, and give it a nice crunch and a sort of like crusty texture to hold it all together once it's all assembled. Additional stuff that's in the fridge includes, as I said, the mushrooms, the Earth Balance vegan butter. What else is there? This baby spinach. We're going to add some baby spinach to add a nice green element to the shepherd's pie. And then finally, we will be going into, of course, the frozen corn, which is going to provide that middle layer, which is actually not included in this recipe. But I like to go traditional. I like things the way I had them when I was a kid. Food, at least. Pretty much none of my childhood I like the way I had it otherwise, and certainly not emotionally. But anyway. Yeah, this is hearty lentil and mushroom shepherd's pie, and now we're going to begin. So I'm going to grab my cutting board here. I'm going to try, apologies if this is not particularly in frame, but so I know the camera is capturing this. So what I'm going to do here is I'm essentially going to just take these potatoes and I'm going to dice them into like square 1/2-inch pieces, I would say. But first, I'm going to peel them. I'm not going to fully peel them because I like the skins on. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a peeler over here, and then I'm actually going to, I don't have a paper towel. Are you fucking kidding me? But anyway, I'm just going to take a separate cutting board then, and I'm going to just essentially take around take off any of these weird blemishes on the outside. I'm going to leave the rest of the skin on. I'm going to give each one of these a rinse individually. So let me do that first because, they come from farms and, again, I just need a fucking paper towel. Be right back. Fucking hell. This has got to be the dumbest shit. Of course, I forget the most obvious thing in the entire video. So anyway, you can also get one of these handy dandy produce brushes here, but as you can tell, it's really not worth the time it takes to fucking to use. So I'm just gonna rinse them off, dry them with a paper towel very quickly, then take this peeler and very quickly start peeling onto this cutting board. Preferably a paper towel. I guess I could use one now. So let me actually do that. So what I'm going to do is take this paper towel and I'm just going to use it to catch all the blemishes and stuff that I'm about to peel off this as well. It's going to be pretty quick and simple. I'm just going to do this to all 10 of these medium-sized Yukon Gold potatoes. Take off the blemishes, leave the rest of the skin, and then dice them into about 1/2-inch or 1/2-inch square pieces. So anyway, I'll show you the first one, then I'll stop the video and we'll cut to the next ingredient that I'm going to process because you don't need to see me, like I said, doing potatoes for fucking 10 minutes. So anyway, just taking out the blemishes very quickly. The potato peeler costs like $2, maybe not even. You can probably get one at like the dollar store, Dollar Tree, whatever you have near you. Poundland if you're over in the fucking UK. I honestly cannot believe they have a fucking store in England called Poundland. But I've seen it with my own 2 eyes. They have one in Canterbury, where I was going on a day trip last year when I was over there in the UK. So anyway, this is a rinsed potato. I've taken off all the weird blemishes. In all honesty, this is probably an unnecessary step. It's not going to kill anybody or harm anybody or make anybody sick to eat those little weird parts. They're just, you know, natural little weird mutations or whatever that happen. But anyway, this is a perfectly good potato. And then what I'm going to do is, essentially, I've never really known how to cut potatoes. Honestly, there's probably like a chef out there who's cringing looking at me doing this right now, but essentially all I'm really going to do is A, not try to cut my damn fingers off, and B, just take the potatoes, halve them, and then like do 3 incisions over here, and then to get them to the right length, I'm just going to cut this, I think, like 3 times lengthwise. So these actually are not inch square pieces, as you can tell. And this one might come out a little bit weird because it's kind of tall compared to how tall the other one was. So I might cut this one. And this is probably the most tedious part of this whole fucking recipe. And apologies again for the lack of audio quality. I obviously don't have my boom mic out here because I'm not at my desk. So I'm just using the old lab mic, which is probably not ideal. But anyway, we got fucking potatoes. And I'm just gonna do, what did I do? 2 the long way, and then the short way. 1, 2, 3. So yeah, these are actually gonna cook pretty fast. The thing about potatoes is, you don't really have to worry about time when you're cooking potatoes. All you have to worry about is how done they are, and you can check that by taking one of the bigger pieces in your pan where or your pot where you're boiling them, sticking a fork in them, and when the fork, not the knife, when the fork pierces very easily but doesn't break it apart, then they're done. If it's too hard to get a fork in the potatoes floating in the water while they're boiling, then they're not done enough, and if they break apart, then you stop right away because you're a little bit overdone. But anyway, I'm going to finish peeling and dicing these potatoes. They're just going to go right into the 4.5 quart pot. Doesn't need to be this big. It just needs to hold the potatoes and a little bit of water enough to cover them. So I'm just going to do that, and then we'll jump back into the next few ingredients. All right, ladies and gents. So what we got here now is a pot very, very full, as you can see, of potatoes. I thought I wasn't going to have enough, but I have way more than enough. This whole thing is going to get mashed, and it's probably going to be pretty much close to this size. Of course, all the space between the potato chunks is going to be gone. But all you want to do is, however many potatoes you have whenever you're cooking potatoes, is just fill them just to cover, add a little bit of salt, and when you're dicing, one thing I forgot to mention is that you want the general size of each piece to be fairly consistent among each other. You want the sizes of the pieces to be the same so they cook evenly. I kind of fucked up right there, and that was a particularly large piece, but everything else that I can see looks fairly all right. There's actually a little cut in here that didn't go all the way through. So anyway, this is 10 potatoes. I'm not sure how much you can hear me over the sink, but I am filling up with I mean, some people say to use cold water so it cooks evenly. I'm going to try to use hot, actually, because I just want this to get done a little bit quicker. But anyway, onto the stove, the potatoes go. You can't see them yet. Turn the potatoes onto high heat and cover them until they start to boil. Actually, this book says to bring to a simmer uncovered, then cover and simmer until tender, so I guess we'll do that. But anyway, moving on, next thing we have to do, let me right the camera here very quickly. Sucks not having anyone to do camera work for you. But anyway, I don't think I finished the focusing operation there, but yeah. As I was saying, moving on to the next ingredient. While those cook, they're going to take a while. You're going to have to simmer them, probably not for the 20 minutes that is just in the book, but it's going to take a while for a pot that big full of potatoes to heat up adequately to even start simmering them. And anyway, in the meantime, we're not just going to sit around. I'm going to start preparing for the rest of the meal and the rest of the video. So I'm going to turn my oven on to 400 to preheat it. Every oven, of course, preheats differently, so you have to, do the one that your model, or do the process that your model has. But anyway, once again, I'm going to grab another paper towel here and use that as like a little trash receptacle. throw another paper towel on that, so it's like cannibalism. But anyway, next is simply up to chopping the Vidalia onions and the garlic. So yeah, we're just doing the onions, the garlic, and I'm actually going to retrieve the mushrooms right now. So I'm going to the fridge, going to grab mushrooms. The recipe calls for 6 ounces, but I'm actually going to be using probably not the full 16, but these are 2 8-ounce things of Baby Bella, all pre-sliced mushrooms. I don't know that they are pre-washed. Sometimes, depending on what your supermarket is, you can get pre-sliced and pre-washed, but I'm not entirely sure that's this. Let me look for any little specks of dirt. Yeah, I don't think they're pre-washed. So what I'm going to do very quickly, just take a little strainer right here, drop the mushrooms in, and we will run some cool water over those just to get the dirt off. I mean, it's not going to kill anybody again, but definitely you don't want to be feeding people dirt, either from the potatoes or from the mushrooms. So that's 8 ounces in. We'll go in on another 8 ounces as well. Actually, probably not for full 8. So what was I going to say? I'm going to actually double it because I'm not sure if the lentils alone are going to fill the dish. And mushrooms, of course, they do shrink quite a bit when they release their moisture during the cooking process. So I'm going to add another, about half of this to the strainer. So we'll wind up with about, wind up with about 12 ounces of mushrooms. So there we go. Almost a pound. 3/4 of a pound. But anyway, yeah, I'm just running some cold water over these guys. You can't see it. It's not really important that you see it. But I'm essentially just running some cold water over these mushrooms. And they're going to sit there and dry off just a tad whilst I go to town on these Vidalia onions. So I'm just going to cut off the top. Cut off as little as you can, of course, but cut off the top. Cut off the bottom. Vidalias tend to have like this peel that's constantly breaking apart. Then what I do is I usually halve them, and then I peel the very outer layer off. Although these are actually quite nice. Sometimes I have to take like the outer layer of onion off, like right here, but that other half didn't make me do it. So anyway, we got 2 halves of 1 onion. This one calls for 1 large onion, but I couldn't find a particularly large Vidalia. Sometimes you can get them huge, but I think they're technically out of season, so these were probably in cold storage or something. So I'm just going to cut the bottom and top off the second one, and hopefully this will be a nice, easy peel. And then we'll move on to the garlic soon after. Yeah, this one's fucking falling apart. Holy shit. Anyway, so take off these halves. I'm just going to check to make sure my microphone is recording, and it is. So anyway, moving on very quickly for onions. There's probably, again, some chef out there who's fucking cringing right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut these into half moons, and then because I do want a pretty fine dice, I'm just going to turn the half moons and then start chopping them this way. And make sure to roll your knife. Don't be like chopping down. Roll your knife. Roll your knife through the onions is one thing I do know how to do. Like I'm kind of doing it badly right here when I do the half moons lengthwise. When I do the smaller chops, I'm trying to keep everything together especially. I'm definitely going to be rolling the knife in that direction as well. So yeah, so as not to lose fingers and shit. But anyway, yeah, this knife is kind of nice. Because it's ventilated, shit doesn't stick to the side of it. You may or may not want one of those. It's going to be a little bit difficult to smash the garlic with the side of this knife, but anyway, I'm getting a tad ahead of myself, and I guess you can watch me chop onions for a little bit because it's going to be quite quick. But anyway, one other thing you're going to want in your kitchen for this is a little bit of olive oil or like peanut oil. Any kind of oil will do. Olive has a lower boiling or burning point rather than peanut, but it doesn't really matter for this recipe. But I do think for this one, olive is going to be the way to go, which is what the book calls for as well. So anyways, flipping these final half moons to the side, getting a nice big chunk of chopped onions and everything. Just get them any way you can, any way it feels comfortable to your hand. And then we're calling here for 2 cloves of garlic. I'm going to go for 3. Garlic has a lot of fucking little tiny peels as well. You can buy these in a sleeve of 5 usually, but you can also get them loose heads around the store as well. If the garlic has like a green stem growing out of it, you technically can use it if it hasn't gone that far, but generally that kind of garlic is sprouted garlic, and you don't really want it. It tastes kind of bad. So anyway, this head is particularly weird. It has like this weird homunculus thing going on the side of it. I'm going to get a second clove out of here. Got this big boy right here as well. I'm just trying to get through all of the layers. I actually just throw away the tinier little cloves of garlic because they're really not even worth the effort that it takes to chop them, which is unfortunate. But yeah, I'm just going to show you the whole thing. Why the fuck not? Anyway, taking a head of garlic that is being particularly cunty to open, smash that bitch, and generally it will open up. Sometimes you'll get like a little side thing popping off here as well. Again, just gonna discard the tiny little cloves that aren't worth my time in chopping. But we got 3 cloves here now. 2 large and 1 sort of medium small. Doesn't really matter. Just depends on how much you like garlic and how big your dish is going to be. And we're right now shooting for a little bit over, just a tiny bit over the recommended here in this recipe book. One thing to remember when you're cooking, especially on a stove top like this, even if you're doing a little bake at the end like we are. It's not baking. You're not making a cake. You're not making muffins. You're not doing any kind of yeast that you need to rise. This is how you chop garlic, by the way. This is why it's a little bit difficult with this knife because it's ventilated here. But generally, if you have a solid knife, just smash the garlic down to the cutting board with the side of your knife. This garlic's making me cry more than the fucking onions. But yeah, break it up into tiny little pieces. It doesn't have to be like razor thin, like in whatever fucking Ray Liotta Goodfellas thing movie is, where he's cutting garlic in a prison with a razor or whatever. It doesn't have to be really thin because garlic, even if it's in big chunks, tastes good as long as it's cooked adequately. And we are definitely going to be cooking this adequately. It's going to be well done by the time it's on the stovetop, or by the time it's off the stovetop. It'll certainly be done by the time we get to the baking process as well. But anyway, so yeah, we're just going to break that clove. Generally, it's kind of nice. The garlic falls right out once you break the seal. It didn't happen on these. This is why I buy in sleeves, because the sleeve garlic, at least in my experience, seems to be a little bit more well held together. But yeah, I'm going to take this big ass clove of garlic. I'm just going to smash it. It's already kind of in half. This is an extremely like sloppy and rough chop going on here. But yeah, it's all good. It's all good. We got our onions and garlic. I'm going to wash my hands very quickly. And then we're going to need to chop the mushrooms, but first we're going to throw these into the pan. So let me make sure that the camera is centered on the pan. I'm going to pan, very funny. I'm going to pan a little bit and try to get a good view of the skillet as well as the cutting board, because we've already seen the ingredients. You don't need me to you don't need me to really go over the ingredients again or anything like to the left side of your screen right now. Let me do a very, very quick focus operation there. And then we're going to have skillet time, and you can also see my, my cutting board. So anyway, hands are washed, and following the prescriptions of the recipe book, I'm also going to very quickly salt the potatoes. I don't think you can see that right there, but I'm just salting the potatoes. Don't go too hard, because you can always undersalt and then add more later, but you cannot oversalt and then fucking undo it by taking the salt back out later as well. And that goes to pretty much any kind of seasoning, especially ones that can overpower like salt and pepper. So anyway, preheating the oven to 400 once again, and also just cooking those potatoes, getting them up to a simmer, and then going to cover them and just do them till they're done. As I said, I already told you guys how to know if the potatoes are done, because they will be fork tender. But anyway, first and foremost, before we start cooking here, going to crack open this fresh thing of extra virgin olive oil. It doesn't have to be extra virgin, actually. I think there are, I think the non-extra virgin types are technically better for sauteing like we're going to be doing. But it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to add 2 tablespoons. I've done this a million times. I'm just going to eyeball it, and I like to go a little bit overboard anyway. So I'm just going to add like 2 tablespoons of olive oil or thereabouts. Feel free to measure or don't. This is what it looks like to the skillet, and then I'm going to turn this onto a medium-high heat to get that nice and warmed up before we throw the onion in there, because I like to hear the sizzle when it goes in. So yeah, what we're going to do is basically Saute the onions and garlic over medium heat until they're translucent, and then we're going to add the garlic and mushrooms and continue to saute until the onion is even more caramelized. I'm actually going to throw the garlic in with the onions because I like to do those guys together because I keep them in the same place on the counter, and it's just simpler that way. So I'm going to dump these in once that oil is hot here in just a couple seconds. And then we will begin chopping the mushrooms into more manageable pieces and throw those in as well. I'm not going to do them separately like the book suggests. I'm just going to add the onion and garlic and then add the mushrooms as well and then saute them all together because there's really no reason to separate it out. The mushrooms are going to cook. They're going to reach that point of moisture release that I discussed earlier fairly quickly. And then we'll be off. So once again, 2 tablespoons in the skillet. You should probably turn on your fan if you are doing this, but I don't want the fan noise to be in the video, so I'm not going to do that. Drop those in there. Get some kind of stirring implement like a wooden spoon. Move them around there. Make sure they don't brown. I got to do that as we go. But anyway, next step is to take these mushrooms. Hopefully they're not all drippy and droppy and droopy and all that shit over here. They kind of are actually though, which sucks. But anyway, we're going to have some chopped mushrooms. I could probably put these in because as is because they are going to shrink. They release a lot of moisture. But all I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a hand on the top of the pile to keep most of them from moving. And then I'm just going to send this knife right through. Just going to roll it through the top and cut these little things into even tinier pieces. Again, you can probably just throw them in, but it doesn't really have to be that scientific here. I'm just going to go across the other way horizontally as we go here. Like some of them are going to go in whole, I imagine. I don't think I've been that comprehensive, but yeah, I'm just going to get all these off my knife and throw them in there right on top of the onion, and they're going to, make a nice, altogether nice and meaty flavor. But anyway, all these are going to go in at the same time. We're not going to add the lentils quite yet. We're going to wait for that onion to go translucent before we do the lentils. But onions, mushrooms, and garlic, I love how all of their tastes merge. So I'm not going to wait. I'm just going to throw all these in there. Got one of these nice plastic cutting boards, cheaper than real cutting boards, honestly. And real cutting boards, really only valuable for like meat eaters and shit. So anyway, we got all this nice stuff. You can actually break these up with a spoon, the side of the fucking spoon if you want to. So we're going to let that go for a little bit, and then I'm going to rejoin you when I can show you how the mushrooms have released their moisture and when the onion has gone translucent. In the meantime, all I'm going to do is I'm going to take out my lentils, and I'm going to drain and rinse them in that same strainer that I showed you guys earlier. These are Goya lentils. They come in a can. You can get like black lentils in a can. I thought about using black lentils, but I'm just going to use 2 cans of this. They call for 30 ounces total, so 2 15-ounce cans of these lentils. They're already cooked and ready to eat. So I'm just going to drain and rinse these, and then we'll come back when that's done. All right, so here you can see we didn't add very much oil here, but you'll see that when you put this many mushrooms in, you are now, after about like 3 or 4 minutes, just that tiny little amount of time, the onions have gone translucent as well, and the mushrooms have released all their moisture. There's actually a lot of water in here now, and they are, definitely, some of them are still kind of stiff, but mostly they are a little bit softer and more pliable. Also, just on the edge of the frame, I believe you can see that there is a fucking simmering going on in the potato land. So I'm going to lower this heat to a simmer. Remember from a previous Cooking with Christ that the difference between a simmer and a boil is the difference between a smile and a laugh. And that is something I stole from a chef I saw on YouTube. But anyway, whose name I do not recall. So anyway, here we have nice mélange. There's a nice French word meaning mixture of mushrooms, onions, and of course that lovely garlic, giving you a nice smell. You wish you had smell-o-vision. Doesn't look particularly attractive, but remember, this is all going to go towards replicating the texture of ground beef. So, obviously you're not going to get the exact thing. I mean, veganism, one of the things I want to tell people most about veganism is that, and I think I've said this in previous videos, you're going to have a pretty bad time if you expect yourself to be able to have the exact tastes and textures that you had as a meat eater or a vegetarian or what have you. So you're gonna lose those. You're gonna lose. You're never gonna have. I mean, there's big advances in burger technology and everything. And I suppose I could have used an entire casserole dish full of like Impossible Burger meat or Beyond Burger meat. I suppose I technically could have done that and made like a really true to life, faithful. Oh, look at how much moisture is in there. I could have made a real true to life ground beefy thing. They've been selling like Trader Joe's and your Stop and Shops and whatever. They've been selling, mock ground beef for a long time. And if you live in like England or whatever, they've probably been selling them for even longer there because veganism and vegetarianism originally started over there. But it's not only healthier, but you can actually get more taste by sacrificing the exact texture of ground beef. So this is going to be a lot chunkier, but it's also going to be a lot heartier and more filling and have more flavors than just burger meat seasoned with salt and pepper and maybe like paprika that my family used to make. Like, no wonder my mother used to put a ton of ketchup on shepherd's pie because it probably wasn't that flavorful in the end. It was probably filling, but not necessarily flavorful. And learning to cook flavorful shit with vegetables is the way to go into veganism, is the way to approach that. It's not about fucking, replicating the exact taste and texture of what you're missing. Of course, as a big seafood head from back in the day, I wish they could do that for fish. Like, I wish I could have something vegan that falls apart, like cod, and they can probably batter it. I mean, when I was in Canterbury, actually, again, convincingly enough, right outside the Poundland, there was a little vegan fish and chips stall. The batter was very convincing, and they put nori. They put a layer of nori, which is sushi seaweed paper, under the textured soy protein they had there to make it taste like it was from the sea, but it doesn't fall apart quite like actual cod or whatever you would have falling apart. So you're not going to get the exact taste and texture, is my point. Abandon that idea and learn how to cook with vegetables. I'm just going to do a quick check on these taters to see how they're doing. They're still very, very solid, although this is almost fork tender. Honestly, this is almost fork tender. I'm going to let them go for a little bit more, though. I'm going to let them go for just a tad bit more. They were on the boil for a while as well. I diced them pretty small, so yeah, your estimation of 20 minutes in this book might be very off because it's been maybe 5 minutes since they hit that boiling point. So yeah, I'm just letting this water evaporate as well. I got my lentils drained and rinsed here, and we're about to approach a particularly problematic phase. And you're not going to see my face anymore because I want to give you a good look at what's going on in the skillet. So anyway, we're not going to see my face anymore because of that, but who really gives a shit? Anyway, for the potatoes, I have ready a giant motherfucking bowl in which to mash them. I'm also going to very quickly pull out my actual masher, which seems to have gone missing every time I need it. But here we are, potato masher. Obviously, you know what that is, I would hope. I'm trying to let this water boil off, but we are actually approaching kind of a difficult point because the next step in this recipe book, it says to add the lentils and their liquid and bring them to a slow simmer in the skillet with all these things. And look how much that color has changed. It's really nice. But yeah, if we hadn't had those mushrooms in there, the onion would have probably browned and caramelized more, but they'll taste just fine. They've cooked through, they're translucent, doesn't matter. The book says, though, to add the lentils and their liquid and bring to a slow simmer, but they're assuming, even though they call for canned lentils, they're assuming that I'm going to use the canned lentil liquid, but the problem is, the canned shit, the preservatives that are in this are what makes, beans and lentils and shit like that and stuff that comes from a can have a bad reputation of causing you to fart. It's all fart juice. So what we're going to do is, because there's no exact drained weight to approximate when it comes to those lentils, what we're going to do is I'm very quickly going to drop these lentils in there and just add them in the pan like that. That's 30 ounces, 31 ounces, both cans of those lentils. Drop them in there, And then to simulate the lentil liquid, I'm actually going to pull out vegetable broth. I don't know what the technical difference between broth and stock is, but they're essentially the same thing. Nice mix of, a nice melange of vegetable flavors. Shake up your vegetable broth, and I'm going to add approximately, I'm trying to think. Let's say maybe a third of the space in a 15-ounce can is taken up by liquid for these lentils. So I'm about to just add, let's see, I'm about to add, let's say 6 ounces of vegetable broth in here to simulate the addition of the lentil liquid that I'm not putting in because I don't want everybody at this potluck to be farting around me, although they probably will, because, you know, vegans are all about plants, and plants have a lot of fiber and will make you fart regardless. But yeah, don't use, whenever you get beans or any kind of legumes from cans, drain and rinse those suckers and you will not fart nearly as much. But anyway, you will still fart though. So yeah, it calls for adding the lentils and their liquid and bringing them to a slow simmer. And then once we have done that, we will be adding the tamari and then the seasoning as well. But we'll wait a little bit for that. So anyway, next up on the, should be on the very edge of the frame, is the tamari soy sauce, 21 seasoning salute, and then the thyme, and then the black pepper as well. So we're going to let that go, and I'm going to do one more potato check very quickly. And I honestly think these might be about ready, honestly. I was not expecting them to be ready so fast, but yeah, they are falling apart to my fork, although that was a small piece. So yeah, the smaller pieces are falling apart, the larger pieces are just fork tender, so even though it's only been, you know, maybe, 7 minutes from the boil, obviously it takes a lot of heat energy to go into, to go bring a pot that large to a boil. So what we're going to do is give this one final stir, and then I will drain the potatoes and be right back with you after that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back to a slightly wider angle so you can see me mash the fuck out of some taters right now. Anyway, one thing I do have to get from the fridge very quickly is the Earth Balance. It's a tad expensive. Trader Joe's, I think, sells, actually no, they sell Earth Balance. There are some substitutes, but this is just the original organic Earth Balance. It's like $3 or $4 or something like that, and you get a lot. It'll last you for a while. It's probably like a couple, like 2 or 3 sticks of butter worth in here. It is 13 ounces, whatever the fuck that means to you. But anyway, we're going to follow the recipe's directions, although when it comes to making mashed potatoes, I find that generally their measurements are kind of off. Like every recipe I've ever tried, I've had to make my own substitutions here, so we'll see how this goes. Anyway, I'm going to grab you can do an actual precise measurement, and I think that I actually might do that as well. So I have one of these handy dandy things. I got it at Job Lot for $1.50. I'm going to take that tag off because I've never actually used these before. So tablespoons and teaspoons, these will help you measure. So it calls for 2 tablespoons Earth Balance or non-hydrogenated margarine. So all I'm going to do is go in there, take a heaping tablespoon of that, drop that sucker in there. It's going to melt very quickly with all those hot potatoes. And then I hope you can accomplish, by the way, I hope you all can accomplish draining potatoes by yourselves. You didn't need me to coach through that. So yeah, this recipe book calls for 10 potatoes. Get what you pay for, I guess. But anyway, we're also going to be adding half a cup of rice milk. I feel like it's going to require a lot more. And you can see, though, over on the skillet, we are reaching not just a simmer, but an actual boil over there. So I'm going to pour in this half a cup and deal with these potatoes very quickly, but I'm also going to turn this down to like medium heat so it doesn't overcook. Although I do want some of that liquid to burn off, but now it doesn't have to happen now. It will happen in the oven. So anyway, all I'm really going to do is just go to town, mashing these potatoes, trying to integrate that Earth Balance and rice milk in there wherever I can see it. we're already getting pretty good results. Like I said, Yukon Golds, they are recommended for purees, although not mashing. So I guess they must have a reputation of being very, very soft. One thing I also like in my potatoes, and you can have this be optional in yours, of course, is a lot of black pepper. So I'm just going to go eyeballing it. Cover the top with black pepper once, and then leave it. I really just love the taste of black pepper in my mashed potatoes, always have, and I want them, you know, to have that sort of nice peppery, savory flavor as well now. So anyway, just going to stir these in, and you can tell, though, that I'm going to, through the steam, of course, you can tell that I'm going to need a little bit more because they're not smooth. They are what we call pretty mealy. And if you want, you know, even creamier mashed potatoes, you can substitute the rice milk that we have here, which is fairly thin, for, I mean, you can obviously just use more butter as well, but you can also use unsweetened cashew milk. Cashew milk, what the fuck is a Mew? Sounds like a Pokemon. But cashew milk is actually, I'm just going to eyeball this. Like this now is trial and error for this. I'm just going to add a little by little. Again, don't add too much. Go little by little. Have a little bit of patience. And go trial and error here, adding a little bit more rice milk and a little bit more butter as you go until you get that nice creamy texture that we associate with mashed potatoes. I don't think the rice milk is actually helping. I think we're going to need some more butter, give it more oil, give it more fat, give it more weight. But of course, be mindful, if you need to, of the nutritional value of this versus that, as you might imagine. So anyway, we're just stirring this in, trying to get it nice and smooth as opposed to mealy. But as I was saying with the cashew milk is the creamiest of all milks. Usually I think about like alternative milks in reference to coffee. For coffee, I prefer oat, then soy, then probably cashew, and almond is all the way at the bottom of that list. Even behind pea milk or whatever, because it's just so weird and has too overpowering a taste. But cashew is a lot more mild in my opinion, and it's a lot thicker. It's hard for a company to make a cashew milk that is not thick. It's nice to have you know, that runniness. So what you can see here is that there's still a lot of this like you know, clumpy, unattractive, mealy shit going on around here. So again, just little by little, add a little bit of rice milk, stir it in. Make sure you mix down and inward from the sides to make sure that everything gets integrated. But yeah, this needs to be a lot more consistent, homogeneous, whatever you want to call it, smooth and creamy before we, you know, serve it to other human beings. I mean, it probably tastes pretty good right now, but the texture is what we're working on with this. Because I mean, you add enough earth balance, it'll taste really good. But I'm actually going to do some more of that. But yeah, the fucking measurements they call for, like every recipe book I've seen has fucking fucked up their measurements of, you know, alternative milk and margarine, earth balance, whatever you want to call it, for mashed potatoes, and it blows. So you kind of just gotta wing it on this. Over there on the skillet, you can see the water continues to burn off here, and that's going pretty good. I'm gonna add just a tad more. I really do wish I had bought like unsweetened cashew right now. If I'm being totally honest, this rice dream. Our rice dream really has no value beyond being a funny Radiohead song title joke. All right, but anyway, get your arms working, work that body, work that dad bod. And now you can see it's a little bit creamier. Still has those little mealy lumps in there, but and that is something that the rice milk will help fill out. I'm going to go a little bit harder in there right now, and just because I'm spending a whole lot of time on that, and I'm running out of things with which to, you know, fill the small talk or the air with as I do this, as I make you guys watch me make mashed potatoes. But doesn't that look good? You get a nice golden texture because of the Yukon Gold potatoes. Not that white that you get from russets. Again, russets are fine for this, but I am just more partial to the Yukon Gold. So anyway, I think we're almost done. Like, there's still some mealy bits on the side, but in the center there, it looks nice and fluffy. Pretty much. Again, not perfect, but fluffy enough. And now, Once that's done, we're going to set it aside. I'm going to wash my hands very quickly. I'm going to grab a water because I am parched from talking this long. And we'll move back to the skillet and focus on adding our seasoning and finishing it up. Now that we have a nice view of that skillet so you can see in granular detail or close to it what I'm about to do, let's get rid of all this shit that you can't see off the side. And we will move on to doing some other stuff with this seasoning and my voice cracking. But anyway, next it says once they're simmering, add soy sauce in the order of, what do you call it, 2 tablespoons. So 1 tablespoon of tamari, 2 tablespoons of tamari, and then just a tad more because I love tamari. But anyway, it really is great. Like once you have tamari, you will never want to go back to regular soy sauce. It's fucking fantastic. And then we have 2 to 3 teaspoons of all-purpose seasoning blend. Fun fact: 3 teaspoons is equal to a tablespoon. So we're just gonna fill this motherfucker right up with it. Do it over the skillet because there's no reason. You don't need to be so precise that you make a fucking mess of your kitchen more so than you already have. So yeah, I'm just gonna throw in about 3 teaspoons, that being 1 tablespoon, of this 21 seasoning salute from Trader Joe's. Very useful, nice to have around. Injects very quickly a bunch of flavor into your recipe. Then we have half a teaspoon of dried thyme. So this is a fresh thing of dried McCormick thyme leaves. So anyway, I'm going to have to bite off the seal here because I might have no fingernails because I bite them and I'm insane. But anyway, I'm actually going to stir this real quick so they integrate, especially if it's dry. It's important to, there's still a lot of moisture in here, but especially if it's dry, it's important to stir them in quickly so the tamari and the seasonings get around and it doesn't just get concentrated into one particular pocket of the food. Now I'm going to find a half a teaspoon of dried thyme. So that's this little sucker. Obviously yours will probably look much different, but here we go. Dried thyme leaves in the order of half a teaspoon. Right in there. And then finally, black pepper to taste. It's better to have a black pepper grinder that grinds the peppercorns freshly, same as it is coffee. Better to have whole bean and grind it yourself at home when you need it rather than just purchasing ground coffee. I might make a coffee cooking with Christ. Coffee with Christ. That would be cool. Might make one of those discussing all the different ways to prepare coffee that I do in my own home. But anyway, just pepper to taste. And remember, we already have a lot of pepper in the potatoes because I like it like that. So I'm just going to not even fully cover the top with a tiny, tiny layer of this ground black pepper. And that's going to be that. And then it calls to cook gently for 5 minutes. So I'm just going to put it on medium. I'm going to slightly turn the heat up for medium because my stove is weird. But if you have a normal stove, medium heat for about 5 minutes is what we're going to let this go to. And we are coming to the close of pretty much the preparation. We just have to stick it in the oven. Looking at the clock now, I'm definitely not going to be able to make this in time that you could make it on your Thanksgiving. I sincerely apologize for that, but make it tomorrow, make it this weekend, make it for your friends, make it for your family. It serves a lot of people, as you'll see. I'll show you the actual, of course, the size of the casserole dish when it comes out. But yeah, I will, I hope to see you guys. And again, a couple of people have done this when I've made my Cooking with Christs. If you make any kind of variation of this or this itself, please post it on a comment on my Patreon creator page or post it in a comment on this particular post or anywhere really, I'll see it. But yeah, post it somewhere and I will give you a nice hearty thank you. Because it always makes me happy to know that even if I'm not necessarily inspiring people to go vegan or, change their lives completely, giving a person a way to, understand that cooking vegetables can be really savory and delicious without any comparison to meat or little comparison to meat in this case, that's pretty satisfying. So if you do wind up making something like this recipe is a lot more to do than my chili, which is basically just throw everything in, or my curry, which is pretty simple. But you know, this is a lot to do. It's a lot of different layers and stuff. But if you make this, please do let me know, and thank you for, you know, taking interest in something that, you know, I take interest in as well. I like to, you know, give a man a vegan fish, so to speak, and you know, teach people to cook with vegetables and all that good stuff. They do have a nice vegan squid substitute, as it happens, in some places, in some restaurants. Like if you live near Boston, you can go to My Thai Vegan Cafe. They have veggie squid. Grasshopper in Alston has a nice veggie squid and veggie shrimp, I believe. So yeah, like Asian restaurants tend to have that. Like vegan geared Asian restaurants tend to have like the good seafood substitutes, but there's nothing like, you're not going to get like accurate fish and chips, unfortunately. Oh, and whilst we're waiting, one thing, almond, that does go over pretty well. I'll step back so it's more in focus. Almond goes pretty well with the substitute nog, like eggnog and stuff like that. This is actually the Almond Breeze almond milk nog. It's really nice. Silk has a soy version as well. But yeah, one of the things I always loved as a kid about the holiday season, quote unquote, was, of course, eggnog. Amazing fucking little drink. And this is actually pretty good. Again, I don't like almonds as a base for milk stuff, and I don't like it in my coffee because I just want to taste the coffee, not, well, I mean, I guess if I wanted to taste the coffee, I wouldn't be putting milk in it anyway. But, you know, soy milk and oat milk are very neutral, and oat milk has a neutral, but it is naturally sweet as well, so you don't have to add any sugar, agave, or whatever. But yeah, for nog, almond is a very good base. For coffee, if you're into lattes and stuff, definitely go with oat or soy. Very neutral, very good. Oat is becoming more popular as well these days, especially like in coffee shops with baristas and stuff, like high-end or like somewhat high-end stuff. So that's pretty good. You can see we're still going as regards the simmering for about 5 minutes, but it's been like 3 or 4 minutes. So I'm going to move on to the next step, which is to add the cornstarch and get this sucker thick. Get this baby thick. So anyway, so what we're going to do, this is actually, one of the things I dislike about this recipe, and I fucking forgot about this actually, is that what we need to do is take the cornstarch and dissolve it in a small bowl. So that you're making essentially an egg substitute. If you have egg replacer, you can use that as well, but I'm just going to follow the directions. This does work pretty well in the end. So I'm going to go grab out my, I'm going to wash out my measuring spoons. Just take a quick paper towel and dry them. Hover my dirty, spicy hands over my almond nog and take a sip of it anyway. Because I'm a goddamn beast. As you remember that video, thank you. But anyway, I'm going to take 3 tablespoons of this cornstarch. I'm going to have 11 tablespoons here as well. It's just white. It has a weird texture. This has the bad texture, is what I saw it referred to. Like, I mean, when I was a kid, I couldn't touch socks, and I couldn't touch, like, the cotton inside of pill bottles, because it had, like, the bad texture. Some of you will know exactly what I'm talking about. Other people will have no idea, and there is no in between. But anyway, here's 3 tablespoons of cornstarch. Try not to get it on you because it's fucking bizarre. So anyway, it says combine this with just enough water to dissolve it in a small bowl. I think they forgot to add that should let it sit for a little bit to get that true, you know, eggy texture. Egg replacer tends to be like tapioca flour and stuff like that. But you can see, let me actually... Oh, fuck, I don't even know if I'm in frame doing, I don't think I'm in frame doing any of this at all. That sucks. So what I did was, I took 3, oh, that's such a disaster. I took 3 tablespoons of this white powder, cornstarch, comes in this thing. You don't really need to see me take it out to understand what's happening. So it's white stuff, take 3 tablespoons out of this thing that it comes in, put it in a bowl, and put it in just enough water to dissolve it, which I did not do. Don't stir it with the... Don't stir it with the spoon that you use to measure it out either, because those measuring spoons aren't good for stirring. So anyway, I got some more water from the faucet here. It is actually starting to thick up really, really badly because I waited so long. Holy shit. I might actually need to just dump all this in Fuck me in the mouth. God damn it, son of a bitch. But yeah, I waited way too long, and it started to like thicken up, so the water isn't going to integrate into the starch quite so good unless I heat it up. But what I'm essentially just going to do is I'm just going to dump this fucking sucker in. And it actually did come out pretty all right in the end. So what I'm going to do is very quickly though start integrating that in there. You're going to think that it's not really doing anything at first, but you can actually start to feel, once you've started integrating it, you can actually start to feel that it's like binding this stuff together, which is what the the egg would do if you had like ground beef. If you were to mix egg into ground beef, it would be a binder, and that's why I say you can use egg replacer for this job as well. So essentially what you want to do is once you've got that shit in there, it is a very powerful binder, and it's gonna make this stuff all stick together and be and when it finally goes in there to bake for the last like 30 minutes to an hour, it's going to be very, very, very tightly packed and compact together. And then there is only one more step, as it happens, for this phase, and it involves my spinach advertising autism speaks to me for some reason. So this is 6 ounces, or 5, not even 6 ounces of baby spinach. The recipe calls for about 8 to 10, but we're going with what we got, which is this whole thing. Let me actually widen the frame just a tad so you can see the cutting board as well. Man, I have made a fucking mess. You will make a mess if you do this. I'm going to start putting some spices back as well, just so I have a little bit more room to work. So apologies if you see me doing a little bit of maintenance like that. But anyway, this is 5 ounces of baby spinach. I'm dumping it straight onto the cutting board, all of it, because of course the recipe calls for a lot more than we actually have here. And then I'm going to do what I did with the mushrooms. You just take a hand, secure the main part of the whatchamacallit, the stack or whatever you want to call, and then just do a nice rough chop, couple times over vertically, couple times horizontally, and then bop, we're dumping this sucker right in there. I actually probably would have done this before the cornstarch binding part if I had thought about it, but I didn't read the recipe because I thought I could do it essentially from memory from the last few times I made this. But anyway, yeah, it's going to look like a disaster, right? It looks like a disaster. There's a ton of spinach in there. That's all you can see. Spinach wilts down even more than mushrooms, though. So once we get this integrated, and it's going to be harder to integrate because of the binding. It's already bound, so it's going to be a lot harder to integrate, but this spinach is going to release its moisture as well. I'm actually going to help it along with just a tiny, tiny, tiny little bit of water in there, probably a little bit more than that considering the volume we're dealing with, but I'm just going to help it along, get integrated in there, and you'll be surprised after like 2 or 3 minutes just how little spinach you see in there. Spinach shrinks dramatically. I'm actually going to crank the heat a little bit as well. Holy shit, I am not on time right now. Holy fuck balls. Man, where does the time go? I sat down to play Fortnite earlier, and I lost so many hours. And that's how it goes. But you can already see how much easier it's becoming. I don't know if you can see the fucking cornstarch cum stain on my oven that I'm going to have to fix later. I'm going to have to clean all that shit up. But, what am I doing? Yeah, as you can see, the spinach has already shrunk. And we're just cooking until it's wilted down, which it essentially is. It's going to wilt down even further in the oven, so we're not going to worry about too much of that. I'm going to take it off the heat, and I'm going to fully take it off the heat, actually, and then we're going to get to the final portion of the evening. So what we're going to do now is I'm actually going to widen the frame and spin it over here. All right. Oh, fuck me. I'm adjusting settings. No, don't do that. But yeah. So what I'm doing is essentially taking that casserole dish on the right, and I'm going to throw it in the oven. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to oil it with this baking spray. You can also just like brush a little bit of olive oil on it. I think this is probably just going to be easier though. Probably ruining my lens. Thankfully I have a lens cap. But anyway, first thing we do is just lightly oil that pan, and then 2 pie. Or it says you can use 2 pie plates if you don't have a large dish, but that's kind of obvious. But anyway, you can use whatever receptacle you want as long as you can get these layers in it. Then we're going to start, oh, fuck me in the mouth, I forgot the corn. Son of a bitch. Well, we'll see what happens. Anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to spread the breadcrumbs around on the bottom of this thing on top of our little baking spray. We're going to spread them around. I don't know how many ounces I'm using, just eyeball it. I'm going to step over here so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just going to brush these around. My hands are clean. I washed them earlier. I washed them like 3 times in this video. So yeah, I'm going to spread them around. I want to get a nice even layer. It doesn't seem to really be happening with this panko right now. It seems to all have bound together a little bit. I'm just going to actually give up on moving it with my hands or moving it with any other way. And I'm just going to lightly, ever so lightly, drop an even layer of breadcrumbs on this sucker. It's a little big in the middle. It's a little big in the middle. So I'm going to flatten it out with just the palm of my hand. Make sure you wash your hands, or don't if you're just eating this whole thing yourself like a pig, because I've done it myself as well. No shame. No shame in my game, as they say. But yeah, shit. I imagine corn will cook. In the oven in the amount of time we have. But final ingredient is actually, I'm going to turn this sucker back on. I'm going to turn this pan back on. It's a pretty high heat, medium-high heat. This is Trader Joe's super sweet white corn. Rather than make it its own layer, I mean, my parents must have made it its own layer and just cooked it in the oven. But anyway, I don't know how long they cooked it. But anyway, we're just adding some super sweet white corn here to this because it's pretty dry and bound, kinky. By the way, I'm going to add another little bit of water to help that along. But yeah, ideally you would have done this like right before the, actually doing it with the spinach or after the spinach has wilted is all right. I guess I would do it before the spinach because the spinach wilts and we don't want it to really wilt anymore. But yeah, I'm going to crank this heat very quickly because I made a mistake and forgot the corn. I'm actually going to put a little bit more in there because I like it. I like it to be one of the defining things because of how I used to eat shepherd's pie. But anyway, hopefully you can see that because I switched the frame around. Anyway, let's get this corn integrated in here. It doesn't, it only takes like 2 or 3 minutes to cook on a very high heat, but you don't need to fully integrate it either because obviously it's going to be in the oven at 400 degrees for 30 to 35 minutes until the potatoes that we're about to put on the top turn slightly golden brown. And essentially your limiter here is the filling. You're going to want to put the entire filling into that thing, into that pan over here, and then whatever's left on top you fill with taters. So yeah, that's how we're going to do it. Again, the spinach is wilting more than I would have liked because I forgot to put the corn in before it. But you can see, remember how much spinach we added here? Maybe baby spinach. Not that much anymore now, is it? So yeah, all we want to do is get this corn like a little bit thawed out. It's actually, because it's so bound together and dry and all the moisture is trapped within the binding, it's actually starting to cling to the bottom because there's not a lot of moisture at the bottom. So anyway, what we're trying to work on is just, it doesn't look appetizing. Like, I mean, I have a habit of saying that, whenever you eat vegan, you usually are eating something like, think of my curry, think of my chili. Everything you're eating as a vegan, or everything I'm eating as a vegan, looks like fucking subhuman slop, not fit for, consumption by people of the genus Homo sapien. But it's actually really delicious. There's a lot of great flavor in there. You can tell by the color that tamari has gone around in there and really immersed or really melanged about in there. So that's really nice. It's going to taste fantastic, quite honestly. And I think I'm ready to just pull this off the heat. And I think whoa, oh fuck. Okay, well that's not good. Apparently I forgot to turn off the heat on the right burner. So these breadcrumbs have been burning and this dish has been getting quite hot. That's not good at all. Fuck me. in the mouth. Okay, now the burner is off, as it happens. So we will begin again with the panko, and just once again, all I did was wash this out and scrape out the burnt stuff. It actually just came right off. It's a glass pan and it hadn't like attached itself fully yet. I just wiped it out with a paper towel. You can do it with any kind of towel, really, so to make sure that it's dry again, so we're not getting these breadcrumbs particularly wet. Although I guess they're going to get wet anyway. But anyway, once again, make a nice little layer with as few gaps as possible, pushing any mounds down with just the palm of your hand, making sure the bottom of this is covered in nice bready, panko, crunchy goodness. Will give us, I guess, oh fuck, I didn't oil it again. I didn't oil it again, but I'm not stopping. I'm not stopping. It's the pan that will suffer, not the food. It'll be a lot harder to clean, but it won't affect the taste of the food. But anyway, as we go, I mean, I guess I can oil the sides. I can oil the side. Oh fuck, this is so bad. Holy shit. All right, how to make a mess. How to make a fucking mess. Oh boy, this is a disaster. Okay, so anyway, I'm gonna push these down, get that layer made all nice and good. This is actually a fucking comedy at this point. But yeah, get the nice layer of panko crumbs as we go here. Fuck, I'm just gonna have to vacuum. But anyway, all right. So now the easy part, the assemblage. So all the filling goes in. Like I said, the filling is your bottleneck. The filling, how high this goes is just going to determine how much you have to stuff with potato after. So yeah, here's our nice lentil and mushroom and corn mixture. It's not actually going to be as thick in that casserole dish as I thought, but this will do enough. It'll do enough to serve, 10-ish people, I think, if nobody pigs out. If I were making this for myself, I would have gone a little bit lighter on everything. But yeah, just move that, spread it out, make sure it's nice and even, make sure the breadcrumbs aren't coming up on the sides. Push all this up. Try to get a nice even layer. It seems a little bit high on this left side right here, so I'm just going to try to move it around. And the breadcrumbs are like being pushed up on here from this side, so I'm going to try to bring this down to the end and make sure there's a nice even layer, no breadcrumbs peeking around the side, and there we have it. So that pan is done. Normally I'd fill that with water just so it soaks, but whatchamacallit, I don't want the mic to pick it up. Anyway, you can tell I'm getting fucking annoyed with myself at this point. So anyway, finally, I'm gonna take this nice heaping shit of mashed tater and plop it on the top. Plop it on the top, make a nice layer. Try not to mix it. Try to avoid mixing it. Just get a nice flat layer on there. I have to transport this, so I have to, try to get it to fit within the confines of the pan, as you might imagine. If I were just doing this for myself, I would not really care. But yeah, I'm going to try to get this to fit within the confines of the pan, because this pan doesn't actually have a cover. I'm going to have to do a foil, and I don't want the foil to be taking off a lot of the mushroom, or excuse me, a lot of the potato on the top. But anyway, essentially, as you might imagine, all you're really going to do is cook this in the oven for about 30 minutes until it gets nice and golden brown. And on the top, and everything. Reminder, everything but the breadcrumbs is cooked already in there, so you don't have to go crazy worrying. Oh, am I at the right temperature? Am I at the right temperature? Is my camera on? Okay. Fuck me. I was gonna be so sad if I had been recording for 5 minutes and my camera wasn't on. So anyway, but yeah, you can see, hopefully, I'll give you a nice close-up on that actually. Oh, wrong way. So yeah, turn this down actually a little bit. Okay, so, fuck, it's not at the right angle. All right, so yeah, actually, you can see a very, very nice cross-section right there in this frame. You can see you got the breadcrumbs, which are pushed up against this side a little bit. That's fine. It's not like that all the way around. It's just because I brought everything down from this side, essentially. But yeah, you can see that, I shouldn't have doubted the recipe book. 10 potatoes, 10 Yukon Golds is just enough to fill this dish, and it's going to satisfy some hopefully very hungry vegan people. I know I will hope their dishes satisfy me because I haven't eaten any proper food in 24 hours. All I had was Talenti peanut butter fudge sorbet, which actually is vegan, which is amazing. So yeah, it's Talenti sorbet. Peanut butter fudge. They have some dairy-free ones that have eggs, like cold brew coffee is actually dairy-free, but has eggs. But yeah, the peanut butter fudge one, all vegan, from Talenti, if you're looking for something to have for dessert. So anyway, all I gotta do is throw this bitch in the oven now. And it has been a bitch, has it not? So you're not going to see me insert it into the oven, but again, this oven has been preheated for a good long while now at 400 degrees Fahrenheit. 30 to 35 minutes is what it calls for. Everything's cooked, so just try to get those breadcrumbs nice and crispy and the top of the potatoes nice and crispy. Let me go for the wide shot real quick. Let's get that wide shot for a wide man. And so it's in there now, as you might imagine. But yeah, I was going to try to do like a casual thing right here, but there's all sorts of shit here. I may or may not have, tried to do that twice already and fucked it up. But this is actually a nice shirt. But anyway, I'm obviously Jesus. Thanks for watching. I'll definitely give you some close-up pictures of the lentil shepherd's pie when it comes out, but I need to start cleaning up just in case I want to, eat sometime in the next century. Because this is a fucking mess, and this is where I make all my food that sustains my body and shit. I probably shouldn't sustain my body, but that's an argument for another day and a much more depressing video. No worries, I'm just joking around, of course. But yeah, I'll give you some close-up shots and a voiceover at the very end. But thank you. That voiceover will contain your music recommendation for the week, which I actually haven't picked yet. And apologies for not getting this video out in time for you to make it for Thanksgiving, but make it tomorrow. Make it on the weekend, make it for whomever. It will satisfy them, I promise. Thanks for sharing this moment with me. That sounds so hokey and cheesy because I'm just trying to think of something to say to wrap up. I think I'm forgetting something, but I guess I'll just say it if I remember in the outro as well. I got to make sure my burners are off so I don't burn down my house. Yeah. I'm obviously Jesus. This has been Lentil Mushroom Shepherd's Pie. See ya. Next time, we'll be back to regular philosophical content. Hey, bye. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we are. I'm just using the camera mic right now because I have to fucking go. I'm already going to be late as is. You can see, one thing I would probably recommend is not using panko, actually. I think that was my mistake to use panko because they're kind of hard and dry, and you want something that's going to like absorb and melange, as I've said 6 times now, with the main filling of the dish. But I did taste a little bit of a corner just to make sure it wasn't a fucking like crunchy disaster. It does add a nice crunch. It's not the worst thing in the world, but they are still kind of white there. They are still kind of a white layer down there, and I wish they would have golden browned a little more. But the you can see that up at the top, we got some frosted tips going on here. If I step down the shutter speed, you can see that the potatoes have turned nice and crispy golden brown on the outside, and this is going to taste fantastic. Like I said, I already tried a little bite on the very edge, and it is really, really good. So anyway, I'm off to wrap this bitch in foil, throw it in my car, and go have a potluck with some friends of mine. But we'll see you next time for more philosophical, obviously, Jesus goodness. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Your music recommendation, I'm pulling it out of my ass. Go listen to McCluskey Does Dallas by McCluskey.